Oh, welcome to BetaCodex Live. Good now, good where, good when. Oh, good now to you wherever and whenever you are. The talking head you are currently seeing on your screen is me. That's Ryan Erickson. Made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and spirit. And joining me today, as I always love to have join me on this show, BetaCodex Live, is Niels Flagging. I think it will be Niels Flagging because I see him backstage. He doesn't look to be at his chair, but we'll see. Is Niels at his chair? I hear Niels.
I am. Not sure why my image isn't visible, not even to me, but I'm here.
Oh,
Oh, what's happening?
okay.
Maybe I draw.
Oh.
Yeah. No. Maybe I just deactivated the camera for a moment. Why am I not visible? That's interesting.
That's the last thing if you know Niels like I know Niels, you know he is not an invisible person.
Yes, I'm not invisible at all. Maybe I put my invisibility cloak on today without. This is interesting.
wearing the black cloak.
Yes, I have no idea what's happening right now, but okay, I'm here. I will try to fix this while we're talking. Okay.
Yeah, well, we can. I can hang here, and we can. While you're fixing it, the topic of today didn't even talk about the topic so far. This idea of doing it for real. I think this came up the other day. Kind of, you had a share of. Hey, there you go. Hi.
Sorry.
Hello, Niels. Hello, Neil. So the theme in practice, doing beta in an actual organization, beta transformation, and in this particular client, IT services and software, you wanted to talk about them. We had, as we usually do, go through a few different topic iterations over time. This one came from you, and I'm curious, and I have a few things to ask about the process and the challenges and victories. And if you wouldn't mind, say hello to the fine people out there and tell a tale.
Yes, I'm glad I'm visible again now. Sorry for the glitch. It happens even in episode number 54. We should be practiced enough to not have glitches, but that's what happens, right?
And this is about preparation. This is about preparation.
Yes. I'm a little bit underprepared and overwhelmed today, in fact, because we never had this our little show here going on as early in the day as today, right?
Yeah, we pushed it up 50
people in the United States where you are located, they're still asleep, right?
Yeah.
Maybe dreaming of a positive outcome of next week's election and so on. So nobody should be awake except nurses and doctors and so on.
Yes, and law enforcement and all sorts.
Yes. And all those people and people doing bakery stuff and so here we are very early in the morning. Very early in the morning. I suggested this topic for this episode. You already mentioned that I'm currently doing a project in a software company, beta transformation for and with a software company. So yes, that's one of the reasons why I suggested the topic. But it's not that I'm doing consulting or beta transformation for an IT software company for the first time. Last year I did one in Switzerland as well for an IT services firm. And of course, I mean, going way back in 2003, my very first consulting project was also for a software company with 2,000 people at the time. In Brazil. Yes. That was my very first consulting gig. I was probably terrible, but no recordings of my advisory exist, so nobody can prove what a lousy consultant I was. But I think I wasn't. I evolved a bit.
You've grown and learned since then.
Yes, because at the time, of course, I did my very best, but of course, we didn't have the same method that we have now. We didn't have the same insight. At the time, I didn't even have a book published in Portuguese at the time. It was in Brazil, right? The client was in Brazil. At the time, I had no book published. So today, for example, when we start a beta transformation, one of the first things a client company does is to buy stacks of books. for their people to read, so that they can get acquainted in their own way and in their own time with the stuff, so that we don't have to teach everything. At the time, of course, I started to teach all kinds of things with all the negative side effects that produces. So we've got a long way. That's one of the parts of it. So second reason why I suggested this particular topic, beta transformation in software and IT services firms, is that, of course, this is connected. This particular industry, you have a heart for
I
that.
do have experience, yes.
So I thought of you, but I also thought it is the easiest industry where to do beta transformation.
And why do you say that?
Yeah, exactly. I figured that we never talked about this. I give you an example, a contrasting example. In the first half of this year, Silicon Dye did a transformation project with an industrial company that's in fast-moving consumer goods, one might say, or pharma. So they have a production facility, or it's a production facility with hundreds of people, and to turn that around meant, dealing with, all kinds of, let's say, tough matters about labor organization, factory organization, how to switch to a leaner approach to production and logistics and supply chain and so on. We had all kinds of trouble. And then there was that particular company is part of an even larger firm, a very large firm. So we had this political dimension too in that beta transformation. Compared to that, usually working in software, transforming or doing organizational development in an IT or software development company is a little easier. You don't have, for example, a division between administrative stuff and production staff. You don't have usually a 100-year legacy of company history to deal with. You sometimes have individual owners. The ownership structure is easier to get along with. For example, last year my Swiss client, they went through a change at the time in company holding or ownership, but in principle they had like these two general managers sharing the workload, and they could decide a lot by themselves. Now in my current project, there's one owner, a single owner. He is also the CEO. So getting to doing the beta transformation is basically a decision of that person to start with. To become the sponsor, that person must become a sponsor, make up his mind, and get things done. Then, which doesn't mean that it's all easy, but just to illustrate, compared to an industrial organization, for example, doing stuff in a service organization is usually a bit easier. It doesn't have to be easier. There might be, family history involved or whatever. There can be all kinds of complications. And of course, there are massive IT service and software organizations as well that have their own intricate, legislative challenges and so on. Ryan? Yeah, you wanted to interrupt?
Well,
I just want to illustrate, it should be easy, to do this beta transformation shit in this particular kind of industry. And second, this kind of transformation is long overdue in this industry because, 20 years have gone by without any real agility, but just agile faking. So this industry is long, is ripe. It's a low-hanging fruit for beta transformers.
Yeah, the transformers, robots in disguise.
And as always, we are not inviting people to believe what I'm saying. We are inviting to question. This is a conversation between us. We don't have to agree even among ourselves.
Oh, now you mentioned belief and belief. Yeah, that was going to be a topic to talk about that at some point. But
belief will come up in one of the next episodes.
Yeah. So again, what I was going to say is that if you're dealing with a company that was founded in the 19th century, and
Yes.
very early into the industrial age, and the way things are done in that company have systemically evolved into
Sure.
a very stable system, and I
Able
think
seeming, yeah, but robust in a negative way sometimes, or in a positive way.
yeah,
Yes. Mhm. Yeah.
inertia. I
Yes.
it's often called resistant, that the system of relationships is resistant to change, that there's some inertia. I mean, I know we've talked about resistance before, it's a whole other thing, but
Yes.
that in the software industry, I think, which is where we are now, that really this industry really only came into its own in terms of how we think of it today as developing
Mhm.
software and organizations, but
Mm.
1970 or so, really. I mean,
Yes.
there were the very large scale computers in the 50s and 60s, but
Yes.
then the mainframes came, and then you had
Yeah.
this whole, again, the Tayloristic division of labor between programmers and analysts and managers and that kind of stuff, which actually, as I've spoken with people who have grown, who have almost from the beginning to now in their careers. So this agile stuff, we were interacting like this in many ways before this agile thing even started.
Sure.
And so yeah, so
One might say that in software there has
there's
always
fertile
been.
ground.
Yes, well, I think it's fair to say I mean, we have discussed this previously, and our network published a paper about the two schools of management or organizing,
Yeah.
that we have come to call the Tayloristic school and the Folletian school.
Yeah.
And in software development, I guess these schools have always coexisted as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Because waterfall has been by no means a consensus. There was always a minority movement, more Folletian school of software development, oriented towards cyclic,
Yeah.
self-organized, more cyclic, more rhythmic organization,
What?
and of course, software development as a relatively young industry or
Yeah.
profession, if we might call it that, didn't have that that much time to consolidate into Tayloristic patterns.
Yeah. Well, it was if an industry is born in 1970, it's kind of saying it's born into what in the beta realm. That's kind of like when complex
In the
markets
knowledge
really
age.
kind of
Yes.
and
Yes.
boom,
Firmly
everything.
rooted in the knowledge age in principle,
What?
but not behaving as such. Right.
Yeah, and I think I was before I was going into that. It seemed like that the Tayloristic patterns, as time passed, have come back into software development in many ways.
Sure. Sure.
And
They're
especially
alive and kicking.
especially with this whole return to office thing and all of that. But
Sure. And save,
so
etc. Right. So it's command and control
yeah,
reloaded. Yeah. But we have mentioned this connection over and over.
reloaded
And of
the
course,
matrix.
service levels is a highly Tayloristic hierarchical stuff. Even team topologies, I think, is just 50 shades of command and control thinking embedded in a seemingly modern approach. Or let's take management 3.0. I'm not sure if that's the name. If that's still around,
It
I do not
was.
know.
It
It
was.
is.
It has now become something else or whatever. But
And
it's
nothing
all.
against people. Again, this is about the concept, right? Which is
Yeah,
what.
and I think, and we can go over who we want, whenever we want, however we want. And I oftentimes, and again, recently, I was interacting with this person, a very smart person, and very very articulate in challenging this ridiculous, horrible, evil HBR article that I came up that bugged me the other day. So we're going back and forth about that.
Yes.
And there's I just there are so many underlying assumptions
Yes.
that this is the way you have to do budgets. You have to have someone else making decisions. There has to be
Sure.
thinkers, that this is it's just
Yes.
there were so many assumptions that's like
Yes. Yes.
it's not worth it for me to take the time. You don't want to consider that there may be some other way of breaking that down. I mean, so
No, I think I think that's what our topic of today is: how to do beta transformation as well, right? How to is a little bit our topic today, and I think that was brilliant in my from my point of view. What you just said, ultimately, beta transformation is about debunking all those myths, all those silly, command and control myths, and there are literally hundreds and thousands in every organization, basically, that is highly alpha. There are thousands of myths to deconstruct, and that takes a few months, but not more, and not just 2 weeks either. And it's not doable with a tool or a single solution. It is a social process. That's why we recommend, using
or in little drips of 4-hour trainings 2 weeks, 4 weeks ago to just give you all the information, because it is a way of practicing what you do in a really a different way, and it removes I guess maybe I've said this before, you kind of have to go naked in beta, kind of get rid of a lot of this protection of, oh, I've got someone, I've got cover, I've got shield, but no, being vulnerable. Okay, so all right, so we're going in somewhere else.
And for the consulting side, for consultant side, people like us helping organizations to transform. This means, of course, getting out of the facilitator mode and getting into an advisory mode, and becoming trusted advisors instead of kind facilitators. Just, that's not enough. You cannot just facilitate beta into an organization. So beta transformation requires a different stance, a different approach. We've talked about this over and over. There are these approaches that we call very fast organizational transformation, invitation-based change, time box change. OpenSpace beta is the specific approach that is the best available today. If it weren't, by the way, we would change OpenSpace beta. So I would sit down and do a makeover of OpenSpace beta. If we found anything out there that was worth including into the approach, we would also include it. The challenge is, and this is why I suggested the topic. The challenge is, or let's put it like this. If we can only transform software companies and IT companies, which should be hungry for this kind of actual transformation by now, they should be. Well, some of them should be. If we can only do it in this industry, we could probably change the world, because this would be a shining example of how to organize work. When we have the methods, the industry is ripe for transformation. Agile has sometimes it's dissolving, has imploded, is less attractive than it was a year or 5 years ago. The approaches are kind of dead horses by now. Many people understand this. So the time is here to do this. And again, from my recent and current work as a consultant, I can say it's one of the best industries to start.
Well, it's
challenging for it in its own right. Industry is somewhat challenged to transform, do beta transformation. It requires, I think, a little bit of experience and specific knowledge and so on. So we have done that as well. But software and IT, it's the natural starting point for anybody who wants to go into this.
Well, I think there are a couple theories I have about this. That one is that software and services, they're conceptual. They're kind of very malleable in some way, that if I believe and behave a certain way, I don't have to move 10,000-pound machines around. I don't have to get supply trucks from A, B, and C company and bring stuff on train to build stuff and have large giant facilities with smelting and all this kind of stuff, which is but obviously but I don't have to have that in a software company of 10, 15, 20, that it's all about. And here's what I think is the big deal. And this is why I think has caused that Agile movement to kind of fizzle, and that there's no real Agile transformation. I think it's the fact that as an IT centric method intervention, right? Agile transformation as an intervention into IT in an organization that is not driven but that the software doesn't drive the revenue. It is going to be seen as IT is going to be seen as a cost, right? So I think that to flip this around to a software only firm, there are many cells in the periphery of that organization who are producing value from the delivery and production of software. And that's a whole system. That's not as in, oh, we're going to make IT better, faster, cheaper, so we can have a lower bottom line on the IT costs, so we can then do our other stuff out there in the universe.
Sure, we're talking about companies that have software development, software delivering software, and software related services, or
right,
IT related services as a business. Yes,
IT arm of a bank, IT arm of a large manufacturer, IT arm of a healthcare system. All those things are in. Maybe they enable some business processes, but they don't drive revenue. They don't drive revenue, and that I think is the maybe that's why it feels like it's the easiest thing to do in software. And this is what I want to have. Debunk me. We don't have to agree. Of course.
No. I think I consciously connected. Interesting question that you're bringing up. No, I think that all IT service companies fall in the same category. Are very bound for this kind of transformation that we always talk about. Decentralization. Because and this in principle, I would say that any service company falls into the same category. But let's take my current client. It's a software. They have a software product, but you cannot. It's not a consumer software. It is
business to business kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a B2B software, so it's run by organizations. So some kind of service is always needed to make it function, and not so much the implementation is service heavy, but certain characteristics and so on. So a service comes with a product. You cannot deliver the software totally without services. Yeah. So in a way, you might say it's an IT company that also has to deliver services, or it's a service company that delivers a software product,
like ongoing maintenance services, or just, because the way the software as a service company is, you deliver and subscribe, but then you have whether you pay for configuration or you pay for stuff like that, or you have professional services. You have a professional services arm of a software company to do that. But then,
sure, no, and but what I'm trying to say is that both for the software business and the service business, beta is the way to go. Of course, decentralization is the way to go. By the way, software development can also be decentralized to the periphery, as my current client is showing. But then, to give you an example, this particular company, maybe we will do an episode with that company or about that company as well. But one of the insights, maybe I mentioned this in the last episode as well. One of the insights that came up in the company was, maybe most of our software developers are capable of doing full stack development and not just tiny bits and pieces. Yeah. And that's a paradigm shift. If you assume that almost nobody can do full stack development, you must always divide between UX and front end, back end, whatever stuff. And people can only do a narrow slice of the software development. Then of course you need integrated teams or departments to develop shit. But if you believe that in principle everybody's a full stack developer, at least if we get that person to acquiring the necessary, then you can move to a much more interesting, much more decentralized structure for software development as well. So what I'm trying to say is that regardless if you do at the core software development or service delivery, and also ultimately we're talking about other services too, like consulting. So it is relatively easy to decentralize. It is relatively easy to, establish instead of having a departmental structure with maybe sales, services, customization,
administration,
creative, exactly. Instead of having these silo organization, to decentralize, turn the organization into a network of business cells in the periphery that is then being serviced by a few center cells. We talked about this in the last episode, I think. Yeah, it's completely doable field. It still requires 90 days to pull it off, pull the transformation off. But it's no, it's a liberation for everyone, literally. So yeah, I think it's not so well understood how much beta transformation has come to reach, has been accessible, or is accessible now, is doable now.
Yeah, and so there's two questions here. And one is, I think just to confirm why it's easier. What I'm hearing, it's easier in software and services because those are conceptual businesses. They don't have a whole lot of baggage, if you will, the holding them back into whatever history and that kind of stuff, or a Taylorist genealogy, shall we say, to come to the moment. And then software and services industries, even if they are older ones, it came in the age of complexity. So that's and the advantage of this conceptual idea. Now, so that's kind of the easy part. I think the question is, well, what's the hard part?
Yes. What's the hard part in this kind of beta transformation in software and IT services, right?
Yeah.
I think it's breaking the paradigms, right? You already mentioned that so brilliantly before. Yeah, it's ultimately deconstructing all the dysfunctional, hindering paradigms and barriers to insight.
The mindsets.
Yes, some people call it mindsets or comfort zones, which is a little bullshitty, but yes, it's
the psychological inertia.
What psychological?
Psychological inertia, or the cognitive constipation. I think cognitive constipation is what I like.
If psychological inertia were a thing, or people's maturity were a problem, then you couldn't pull off transformation in 90 days. And we've proven over and over that it works, right? So regardless what kind of people you're dealing with, psychological inertia is never a problem.
But what we're saying, you're saying the hard part is the paradigm shift. That maybe that's belief or something like that. I don't. So how if you go into a level deeper, that when you've met the sponsor, okay, so the sponsor has come to you. Somehow you've come to the sponsor and that says, I dig it, I want to do it, let's do this together. And then this gets released into the wild, and then there's it. It's not just going to happen immediately. So then and you're talking about what is how does it work? What is the practice of dissolving that paradigm and building something new?
That's a big question.
Yeah, we got 45 minutes minus. So I
could give a ton of examples. What area do we want to get into?
How about just one story about a person names to be withheld, right? Or one person or a small group that had a very particular, I'll say a firmly held belief about the way things ought to be, should be done, and maybe not. But why would I do this? Why should I do this shit?
Yeah, but I think the to cite Michael Jackson, I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
look in the mirror and you see a person who has a lot of beliefs that deserve being deconstructed. So we all hold these beliefs about work and how it should be organized, what an organization looks like, what my organization looks like, how my people are, what my colleagues are like, and they all need to be deconstructed. But many of these beliefs need to be deconstructed. A very simple thing is, let's take transparency as an example. It's very easy to say transparency. We have transparency. We should have more. We will have transparency in beta. It's very easy to say. For example, at this current client, it took weeks to uncover the data, the historical data from that company from the last 36 months or so that you have a comparison, that you can observe long
do actual to
trends
actuals,
evolving. Yeah, to find that information about actual real performance, past performance, and to put that into a report that's readable, simple for everybody to understand. Only 2 days ago, one of the general managers at my client, he turned around the computer and said, "This depicts what the state of our company is," and he showed a graphic that I had kind of suggested it to them, to have a chart of EBIT figures, accumulated over the year. How is EBIT progressing January, February until December last year and this year? And it was the information wasn't so positive in this particular case, right? There is now a turnaround for many reasons, but and this kind of that you can show actual information at a meeting, whoever is there, and a general manager is saying, "Look, this is the dire straits we have been in until a couple of months ago, and this is the turnaround, but it's not it's not the solution yet. I do not see this in many organizations, that you have the information, that you understand how to deal it, and that in a normal conversation, we just had a normal conversation about organizational development, one person brings up, turns around the laptop and says, this is the fact. This cannot be argued with, and this, this level of quality of reporting, the quality of, let's say, information sharing, and as a natural thing, and that with everyone, you would always say, "No, these are the facts. These are our figures. I can show you if you like, but it's very simple." And maybe you've seen it. Yeah?
This is reality.
This is a paradigm shift. To get to this requires shattering so many paradigms, even by accountants who might be, attached to their information and not like to see it displayed anywhere, or people who do not feel comfortable with the quality of the information, or do not trust themselves to interpret it. And there are thousands of reasons why we do not have transparency. It's sloppiness and lack of knowledge about relative targets included. Yeah. So many paradigms, and you would say, to make an organization agile or beta, transparency should be a no-brainer, right?
What kind of transparency, and what is transparency? What is not
exactly?
To know what transparency is, you have to know what the obfuscation is, right? So what is being held by whom? Why are they withholding that information? What benefits come from that holding of information?
Yes.
And so
why do we not have
a fast
monthly closing? Is always attached. With all my clients so far, I had the problem that they didn't have a fast close. I usually ask them very early on, my clients, when do you have the monthly closing? And usually the answer is on the 10th day of the following month, the 15th day of the following month. Sometimes on the 20th day of the following month, sometimes never. The closing is really finished. So the numbers are never reliable, never. Or way too late, so that you cannot build a decentralized organization on, maybe we get the data in 10 to 15 to 20 to never days, it's impossible. So also these kind of paradigms, and of course then the accountants and controllers usually say a fast close cannot be done. In this case, I surprisingly, that didn't happen so much, but it cannot be done. That would take ages to get there. No. A fast close can be done by any company at any point, and it's one of the standards basis. So you have to change the mindset, not change the mindset, but you have to shatter assumptions even about accounting, right?
And this brings me back a second in terms about okay. So what I was originally going to say, hearing that, it's like, well, if there's this opacity, this obfuscation, well, and then, oh no, we can't close so soon, so you have to trust me. So in order that now I have to, so we don't have the numbers here, so we have to act as if the numbers that I put out there in the plan, in the prediction, in the projection, that those are true. That's what's really there. So
Sure.
I know that, and I've shared that
Yes.
with the senior executives and the board, and they, whatever. It is this kind of this kind of control, and maybe we differ on this. I don't
Illusion
believe.
of control.
Yeah, it's a delusion of control, but this is. I don't think it's evil. I think it's a learned behavior, and it's
Yes.
almost this learned, and we say learned helplessness occasionally, but
Yes.
this is
Yes.
this learned dependency.
Yes.
That I must depend on this person for the plan, so I know what to do, and all of this kind of stuff. So, which is.
At a recent client, I had the situation, and we will soon get back to software development, software and services and so on. But these things are all related. For example, at a recent client, I encountered this situation that I asked, okay, so the cost reporting, who has it? Who has the cost information? And so they said, this person. Okay. And then I inquired in writing, who gets this cost report that you produce? And it was filled with plan actuals, variances that didn't make any sense but of course, in a beta organization, you do not do plan actual variance reporting. You do not do budgeting. So it's kind of report what was superfluous in the way it was done. And I asked, who gets this cost report, right? And what was the answer? Of course, nobody. It's just a person making the cost report, an Excel thing for him or herself, and not sharing it with anybody, not even the general managers. Oftentimes, maybe twice a year they would get it, or somebody might ask for it and they would get it, but it was not publicized. And there was no order that said, let's keep the information closed shop, don't share information. There was no executive order to be withholding information. No, it was just whatever, professional assumptions about professionalism or whatever. And why
people can't you can't handle the truth.
Yeah, and that's a professional assumptions by accountants and controlling. Other people will not understand the cost information. We cannot confuse them, or they will panic and jump into lakes or rivers or the sea, the wild ocean, if we show them the numbers. Now the numbers are very good. We cannot show the numbers because then there will be no change, is one assumption. Now the numbers are bad. If we show people the numbers, then they will commit suicide. That's the other stupid assumption. So you can never share you can never be transparent in that kind of. And now we might be joking about this, but these are serious mental models that exist. Another mental model is software development, IT services. If you have a Scrum team, don't bother them with financial data.
God, that's the worst thing.
It's a taboo in Scrum. Even the Scrum guide until today says nothing about finances. So there is not even an idea of producing consciousness in software development teams or in software developers. Male, female, in between and beyond. To produce some economic consciousness.
It builds in the dependency. The dependency is built into the rules of the game, and I think that is why this whole no such thing as an agile coach happened. Like, there's a group of people that because as a person who's responsible for this transformation, that it's important to have a fiduciary responsibility. You're hired to do a gig, and then it's important that this team or teams or in the hierarchy that they deliver financial value, and you have to know what that is.
And ideally who buys it and under what circumstance and why. Then you can get rid of the product owner role. By the way, my current client, they are getting rid of the product owner role basically today. Today is the 1st of November, right? So with their go live, they have a very competent product owner. I think that guy is amazing. However, he knows the role sucks. Everybody knows it doesn't work. The role doesn't work. So why not decentralize software development part of it? Centralize, keep only part of the software development centralized. Have teams in the periphery build features to market. Have some people in the center developing software for the periphery teams, the business teams. So you do not need a product owner. You can just have conversations among business people and with clients and so on. You will learn a lot more. It will be a lot more direct, much less driven by ideology. So all of these things are, to have a product owner even is a mental model that is kind of really really silly. It is only it's only an artifice, a second best. The best thing is always to talk with the client, talk to the periphery if you are in the center.
Yeah.
That should be the rule. So all these things need to, it must need click, click, click. Now, here's the thing. In a great data transformation, the consultants do not have to explain these things. They have the insight by themselves or reactivate that insight just because the conditions are right, just because the process unleashes the consciousness and the reflection. And oh my goodness, maybe we shouldn't have. Oh, maybe everybody knew it all along. In my current client, I think everybody knew all along that there needed to be a change in the software development part of the business as well. And so all these changes in paradigm, in interactions need to be produced, and that requires a social architecture, an architecture in time, right? What we call OpenSpace.
Yeah, and very. I mean, it's kind of a rudimentary project plan if you think about it. I mean, there's the 45-day kind of the seeding of the soil, right? And then you have the event, and then kind of the lead up to the event, the prep day, and then you have. I mean, it's a sequence in time, and then there's a prelude, an overture, a couple movements, and then you have the finale. Right, and then
that's interesting that you are putting. You just articulated very fast organizational transformation, time box change, OpenSpace beta in musical terms. That's very interesting. I would like to see that in writing. Interesting. Interesting. No, you're right. How did you call it? Prelude.
There's the prelude.
Setting the stage would be prelude.
Yeah,
and then
prelude, overture, which is kind of the planning, like the OpenSpace event. You have a beginning and middle event to that. So there's the prelude, the overture, then you have the movements. In the symphony, you go through a few movements, and then the last movement of the symphony is this finale, which also maybe has a reprise of the overture. You have the theme of that goes through the movements of the piece, and then at the end you have some reprisal of the theme, a different embodiment of the theme that happens.
Coda is at the beginning.
And the jazz and the scene, and of course the jazz is a different thing too. But this idea of coming back to where we started, but seeing the world in a different way. That's like the finale. Great. And then as the coach leaves, as the conductor leaves the stage, right? Or the master of ceremonies, however we do that, then you leave that piece of music into the auditorium, into the space, and then it lives in the hearts of the audience, and they go forth. So yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. I like that framing. Interesting. Yeah, you should put this in writing in some way. Yeah. Yes. There's a musicality in the kind of beta transformation we suggest, right? Yeah. And it's not really the way you described it as the architecture in time that also a symphony has, with the same kind of basic structure in a way. It illustrates so well that tools come second, take second or third place in this kind of dynamic of transformation.
Yeah. And well, I was thinking of that, and that there is, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier, that in this example, these are the numbers we have. This is awful. Look at this. This is this, and that a company that is experiencing that has there's a need for intervention, right? And there a need for an advisor, an interventionist. That kind of stuff. It's not necessarily so you don't open the space with a flabby theme, right? So this is an intervention that, and I think also an irritant, right? We talked about that this kind of, that a transformation like this is an irritant to those structures that are failing and flailing. So in that, I mean, it's not specific to IT, but you alluded to that being the case with this particular client, that they weren't healthy, and they needed some kind of intervention. Is that a true statement, or is it somewhere in between?
Do you mean financial results?
Why did they do? I mean, again, who knows why? Who knows people?
No.
Certainly don't have to.
Yeah, but let's frame this differently. I have found that all our transformation clients, I mean, all companies face some kind of economic challenge all the time. I mean, no company. The world is full of myths about financial company performance, right? And supposedly everybody just maximizing profit, or But most companies, I think, most of the time, alpha organizations especially, suffer from anemia, or they are, from, let's say, what's the name of the physical phenomenon? Entropy, they suffer from entropy. So command and control organizations, I mean, this beta transformation is not just to make the world a happier place. It's also to make organizations more economically healthy, more high-performing. And sure, most of our consulting, I'm thinking about what kind of organizations have we worked with in the last 20 years, or maybe with OpenSpace Beta in the last 6 years or so. I mean, most organizations could be financially much better. Sometimes we had, we started the transformation work, and then the companies, we discovered that it wasn't as healthy as it was first.
Were they telling you a story?
Exactly. There are other let's say, other facets of the story came up. That is not a thing with our current client, by the way. They were very straightforward about what happened and how they needed to change their business model. Let's put it like this: most organizations that are alpha have flawed business models and flawed organizational models, and the business model is also flawed because they are, like business units, functional hierarchies that constrain the business, that makes the organization unhealthy. I think, this idea that companies are either very profitable or bankrupt, it's just bullshit. Most organizations struggle with a permanent decline in profitability and health. And of course, beta transformation is very interesting for those kind of organizations. Of course, now today we're talking about software companies and IT services, right?
Yes.
And usually that kind of company should have a 20, 30 or more % margin over sales. The profit margin should be like 20, 30%, and it could be a higher even, in some cases. Why not? And if you do not have that, if you have steadily declining profitability, that's an indicator that something is wrong. There might be something wrong about the product, but most often I think the problems with the product are only just symptoms of something more deeper, that is flaws in the business model and in the organizational model, or the two. Those are the typical messes that I think most companies are in. They do not know how to fix. They see, the cost creeping up and the profitability going down. Maybe even income is decreasing. So I have also talked with last year. I talked with quite a few software companies that needed to change their business model to subscription based, and didn't know how to do it financially. How to
account for it, or
no, how to survive cash flow wise, the move towards subscription based. If you charge your clients every year or when they buy the product, to move to a subscription model means short term, it means that your cash flow will suffer. So how to do that if your profitability is already shrinking or declining or zip? So all these things are real. I think it's ridiculous to state that all companies are super healthy or bankrupt. Most are in the middle.
Well, it's having a distinction, asking more questions, asking better questions about the company that you're with and that the people you're speaking with, and this, when you were talking about that, the word transparency came up again. Well,
Yes.
if there was visibility to, oh my God, whatever's going on, well, let's look at this part and be honest. Be honest in that there's no, this is not about a power differential that I'm going to use this information to punish you. No, this is with us, for us. I need your help, your help, your help. We need, as a we together, it's important that there is a shared understanding of what reality is and what is possible with the people we have to ameliorate what challenges there and go forth. Right. So that's, and so the myth of either champion or chump, right? So that's again, yes, and yet another myth. But it's so software industry and services industry, okay, just software and IT being these conceptual kind of knowledge, almost explicitly only knowledge organizations, has malleability to it. It may be easier to change than a large scale, a fast moving consumer goods company, and to make that change. And so we said the hard part is engaging with the existing paradigm and worldview about what an organization should be, and so after that, so we'll assume that there has been a sponsorship conversation, that the books have been, the books are getting read, the concepts are getting understood better. So there's this understanding. Okay, all right,
with OpenSpace 1 looming, or are you talking before start?
No. I'm exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the sponsorship, crafting the invitation to the OpenSpace and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so all right, so now we're done with the prelude. Now here's the overture. Okay, here's OpenSpace. How does that, in your experience, how has the overture differed in an IT and software firm from a manufacturing or shipping or another firm? What are the distinctions that you make between those domains?
Excellent question. Well, okay, there might be different facets to that question or answers to that question. So how in a service firm or a knowledge-based firm compared to an industrial organization, how is the overture of the transformation different? Well, usually it's easier, to unleash conversation in a company that is not industrial, that is just service-based, right? But it depends. For example, I had this client last year where everybody was scattered over 7 countries, I think. And almost no offices, very little office. So people did remote work or work at their clients. So getting people together for the overture, for the necessary social density to form agreement, to organize the learning process, it is not so easy. It was a totally service company, let's say total IT services company. Almost no proprietary software that they had. So they worked with a partner who produced the software, let's say, and they were a distributor.
Professional services,
professional services, the typical thing. So would I say that usually in a IT service company, it's easier to gather people, to get people together for a learning process of, let's say, 60 days or 45 days between the invitation drops to everybody and the OpenSpace 1, how hard can it be in a software company or a service company to bring people together to collude, to learn, to get into discourse about the organization and so on? And I wouldn't really say that all service companies are easier with regards to that, but of course it is. If you have a 3-shift production facility, it might be harder to get individual employees.
The logistics are horrible.
Exactly, the logistics are much harder. How to organize the prelude? It's and in software development or services, there are no shifts. People basically maybe might usually work Monday to Friday. So many things are easier to organize. The logistics are easier of organizing the prelude. Yeah, that's usually, except when you are very scattered, and so then there are other intricacies. And of course, we developed tools like Comenius for exactly that purpose. How to offer a learning process learning tool. Maybe you can show the name so that people can at least look at the website. It's a way of learning, a way of a learning technology that allows people to discuss in groups more intensely, and that kind of tool or methodology or approach or technology is highly helpful for beta transformation as well.
And I think a couple of pieces in there that you mentioned too. So the ease of geographical convening for knowledge work and people doing remote work is different than again the tactics of doing just the logistics of it. And I think also
but I'm not only talking about the open space. Yes, you have to convene physically.
But the whole thing, doing the work is tough. I mean, because if you have a cell that consists of 3 different time boxes, you've got 3 shifts of people in a cell, I guess.
Yes, we had that.
So that can be a challenge too.
Yes, or people living in being in different time zones, usually most of the time. So that can be all kind of, but this goes for industry and for services. It can happen in all kinds of.
It's everyone's globalized, and arbitraged in certain ways.
Well, not everybody.
Many,
some
most
clients are very
in general.
And we've done it. We've done it all. I mean, we have done beta transformation with clients that are very focused, that only have one geography, one
physical site, one time zone.
Yeah, one physical site or physical office. And we've worked with organizations that are rather scattered. And all of that, all with 2 main sites or 3 main sites. We've done all of this, and it requires different approaches, different stances at how to organize the prelude.
So there are a couple of things. So the first thing I thought of when you were talking about that, and the logistical thing and the relationships, that, and I don't know how it is in Germany. I think that there's some specific differences, but here in the U.S., there's the organized labor movement, the traditional, the bargaining units of particular crafts and skills. That there's and the historical coming to conflict between those 2 organizations. Now, of course, you and I know from reading Follett, she had many ways of bridging that gap as in integration conversations, and other examples in the Andre Gabor book, of course. But so labor relations in beta transformation, that is something I think that's. What insights have you come to about that? As again, knowing that I don't know how it works in Germany, what have you found in your work as far as that's concerned?
Interesting question. Also today you have the greatest questions. By the way, for our listeners or viewers, we never talk about the questions ahead of the session, so there's always the element of surprise and spontaneity.
It's always jazz. It's always jazz.
Yeah, we cannot do differently. We cannot do anything else. I like to recount my first encounter with a employee representative person. In a consulting project, and that was interesting. So this guy was invited. He was an employee representative, like the elected We have this very strict system in Germany, stricter than in the United States, of company co-representation. I'm not sure what the right term is right now. However, this guy, he sat at the table, there were managers and me present, and this guy, and I kind of started to explain, okay, good to see you, good to get to know you, and but maybe first I should say at least a few words about our approach, BetaCodex. And this guy, he said, no, you don't have to explain that. I already read one of your books, and I'm a big fan of your work and the approach. And that was like, is this guy fucking with me? And he said, no, and I understand that this is what employee representation should look like. This is what we as society should strive for, and it's this kind of approach to work that I totally subscribe to. So, but we can talk about the technicalities, of course. That was so beautiful. And of course, I had yes. So over time, we have sometimes had this as it has come up as a big topic in some of our transformation projects, company representation, employee representation, and so on. And how employee representatives behave is, I think, depends on their own ideology. We talked earlier about the firmly held assumptions and belief systems and so on. And of course, company representation, employee representatives have their own dogma, ways of dogma. Some are Marxist, some people might be Marxist and anti-capitalist, and it's a little bit tougher, to establish a consensus at the beginning. And as I very interested in Marxism as well, so I find this interesting and conceptually challenging and interesting and exciting as well. However, of course, it's usually much
a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's different because Beta is firmly rooted in, let's say, values or principles or concepts that are democratic and market
driven. Market,
let's say. Yes.
Yeah.
And also, of course, human nature-wise, we assume that people are not children and that they are not dumb and that they are intrinsically motivated. And of course, as the command and control approach to organizing, to managing, has produced an antagonist in employee representation and unions that plays the same game, only the same command and control game, only under another banner, another flag, with another flavor. And this, so in a way, command and control organizations produce their own antagonists, like Batman always produces his antagonists. Yes.
Yeah.
And this dogma that you have to have conflict of interest between management, let's say, and unions or employee representatives, it must be overcome. So there are dogmas to be overcome, belief systems to be overcome on both sides if there is a strongly antagonistic positioning. And we have especially Silke and I, we have gathered a lot of experience in how to overcome that, how to approach them, how to approach antagonisms, these, let's say, preconceptions that have nothing to do with beta, that are totally about alpha and maintaining, in a way, alpha dogma, right? So yeah, that must be professionally dealt with, and we've done this with airlines and with pharma, and it's interesting. It's also challenging, a part of work. I do not see that problem that much in software development or IT services, right? So,
well, there's also a big there's been a long time movement, I guess, that to unionize software development.
Sure,
and
certainly so, and I'm always pro union, and I think that Beta is inherently pro society, pro democracy, pro union, pro employee. So it's but of course these dogmas can play a big
Well,
role.
there's
Learned helplessness, antagonisms. These things must need to be over.
there's dependency within organized labor as well. And
Yes,
and
and
that's
hierarchy is often very strong, and political gaming can be strong. I mean, this is not too. Everybody knows this. We all know this has a long history. More than 100-year history. So there's nothing new about it. However, if you want to approach beta transformation and want to get transformation done in 90 days, of course, then how do you make agreements about compensation systems, time, work hour changes that might be, this is flexibilization of labor with, how to make that happen, the necessary agreements to do the beta transformation, how to make them happen within the tight
time box
of 90 days. So you have to, you cannot have antagonistic
there's no time for the bullshit. There's no time for the bullshit.
You have to cut through the politics on both sides. That requires some, often some, and we have seen that this is not easier said than done. Yes, so distrust needs to be overcome sometimes. Sometimes, relations need to be healed or rebooted, in some way possible, and the work has to be done in a different way. And we learned that. We have seen many different dynamics unfold, but of course this is stuff that can be done if you tackle it right. Yes. But we have often heard, this kind of change, it cannot be done between management and employee representatives. This cannot be done in 90 days.
This can't work here. This can't work here.
This kind of thing takes at least a year and a half. No.
Or more,
only if you think it needs to work, in a very intransparent, antagonistic fashion, or very technocratic fashion sometimes. But there are ways to do, to resolve employee relations issues within weeks. And I mean, every company knows that as well, because sometimes companies have to overcome technical problems.
When there's an emergency happening, when there's an urgent situation,
or mergers and acquisitions. Yes.
And the other thing, I have to bring this in because you've inspired me to bring this other idea in, is that we can't do this here. We just no, we have labor agreement, we have this, that, and the other. And well, how would you handle this situation with these people doing this thing in this way? They've got this so decisions need to be made here. Oh, we got these decisions that need to be made here. And how do you do that when you've got all people willy-nilly in cells all over the place? Well, you know what? You do it differently. I mean, it's just the thing, like, how would you in this self-organized, decentralized, federalized, democratized organization of small group cells, how would you handle this ridiculously complex problem that we have? Well, how's it working for you in dependency mode, in hierarchical command and control?
Exactly.
Well, the thing is, it's super easy, because all you have to do is you have to have one person making the decision, and that one person telling the other people what the decision is. So, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble, and it goes up to the top. You do this, and then it goes down.
By the way, we might add that one of the advantages of working with very fast organizational transformation, or time box change, or OpenSpace beta, as we call the specific approach we use, when we work with those two OpenSpace instances, OpenSpace 1, OpenSpace 2, with 90 days in between, that means that all employee representatives will also be part of the invitation, receiving the invitation, being part of OpenSpace 1 if they choose to, and of the closing and all the process. So one of the total departures of this kind of approach that we promote compared to change management, where you develop solutions behind closed doors, then roll them out. You want to surprise labor representatives with it and shock them and awe them. And, that's not our approach. Our approach is that, no. Managers are part of the whole process of transformation, through the different time boxes, through the overture into the what?
The prelude to the overture and to the
exactly through the whole
piece,
process.
yeah.
And employee representatives will be part of the same. It's just that they will also, as they will have the employee hat on and the representative hat. Like managers will self-identify as employees and as managers and whatever else they are. Yes, this process involves everybody in the same democratic way, which creates, a much more positive dynamic about the whole undertaking. There's no secrecy, there's no, surprise element, there's no solution developed behind closed doors. So that makes the whole undertaking of changing, compliance-related aspects of labor relations, of organizing time, salaries, job descriptions, or something like that, to make these changes in a very effective way, because there's no secrecy in the process.
With that, and I think with that dissolving of secrecy, and that, hey, we are in this. This is the time box. We have this many days, and
we're in this love together.
Oh, thank you, Al. Thank you, Al. I listened to that. I listened to the album. I listened to the album
in my mind earlier. We have to deviate, as always, into the world of song. I will read the letters to you. I looked them up. Listen, boy, I don't want to see you let a good thing slip away. You don't know. I don't like watching anybody makes the same mistakes I made. Oh, yeah, what else? Listen, boy, I'm sure that you think you got it all under control. You don't want something telling you the way to stay in someone's soul. You know the song?
I'm so familiar, but which tune is that?
Listen, boy.
Oh, it's Tell Her About It, Billy Joel.
Tell her about it, exactly. Tell them about it. It's all about. It is all about tell them about it. We could write a new version of that song for Beta's.
I think. Right? Tell her about it.
Tell her everything you feel. Give her every reason to accept that you are for real. That's very much like beta transformation. I had not noticed that. Of course, not about girls, but about.
Okay, so I got to write the.
Tell them about it.
And I think it also comes down to what you brought into that. What I imagined in my mind were that, well, if you have the managers, the executives, the labor, if you have everybody in, whether the virtual room or the conversation, and if it is a large scale conversation, and the charge is to, hey, we're going to write this symphony, together, and we're in this love together, people. And that, as I found in OpenSpace, and I think this is one of the beauties of OpenSpace in general, and I think why it works so well in beta, is that you get to know people, right? And you get this sense of intimacy, because we together have a need to solve this challenge that we have, and to open the place for possibility. And to do that, I need to grow. And I know that you are in that place, and I want to know about you. I want to know the hopes and fears. And so this is that kind of the taboo, this we got to love each other, man. There's another tune there, but it is becoming closer and developing shared understanding. And wow, I see that these challenges you have as a labor organizer and as a manager, these things are together. If the space is, if it's sponsored healthfully and set up with the prelude, the prelude is there, and that creates that sense of knowing one another and bonding together for this better that we see.
Yes, people stop. In effect, beta transformation is also about starting to care more about yourself and the other, within quite small teams, really. Cell structure is about creating small socially dense teams, and also creating socially dense relationships between teams, always. So it's about caring more about who is that person, how do we work together, how do we relate, and
it's not just that person over the wall. That's just that person over I'm throwing something over the wall and expecting something back, and if they don't give it,
Yeah, I often hear in my, in my personal work of accompanying organization, I often hear this. Oh, I do not really know that person. I've never met her or him. I do not know anything. Now we will be part of the team. Okay, we have to start talking. Yeah, or sometimes I hear, well, nobody really knows that person. You know, this is I think something typical in software development and IT services. There more and more virtual work, more and more remote work or hybrid or whatever kind of fake distinctions are being made. And that leads to more social sloppiness, so to speak. Yeah, the opposite of social density. I like to think that it's social sloppiness, and then social massacre if it goes even more into unhealthy relations.
Oh my gosh! The distinctions that can be made.
So it's about getting to know each other more, meeting face to face. For example, at my current client, the office is much more lively now than it was 2 months ago, 1 or 2 months ago. And that is not because there was some kind of command to come back to the office, but we also thought about, okay, how to make the dynamics that we unleash, the events that we do, how to make them physical, how to make them interesting, how to make it appealing to come to the office, more appealing than it was before, and so on. So these kind of elements are also important for IT software service companies. Yeah.
I mean, how much better is it to want to go to the office and be with people that you care about, as opposed to being forced together and sit in a chair and do the same work you were going to do at home?
Exactly.
Which is,
but also, I mean, you have to question your style. For example, at a recent client, they did the how's it called when you prepare the sprint planning.
Yeah.
They did it virtually with 20 people or so in a virtual session like this, right? So I asked, are you out of your mind? Do you want to ruin the company? You really want to continue the sprint planning virtual? And there was no, like huge geographical distribution of people or in different time zones, nothing. It was just an assumption that you could also do the sprint planning virtually. And I think that's not a good idea if you do not really, really need to do it that way, for geographical reasons, time zone shit and so on, flights involved, But,
I mean,
of course you should do this physically, and it should be delightful, interesting, good food. Maybe if it requires more time, have a joint meal.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other. What are the planning path? I mean, I think there are ways to have an enjoyable. My when you talk 20 people doing a sprint plan, that first of all, that team is just too giant, but
Sure,
anyway,
that's the first part. That's the first bit. Totally.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
but if you have to do an integrative event, you should do it physically, if possible.
Yeah.
Yes,
because
and it's usually possible.
Yeah, to have a purpose for the meetings. I think that, and maybe this is again, we're like, how many more episodes have we planned in this episode? But the idea of there's times when it's important to have the conversation, to engage in the complexity and the uncertainty and the insight that happens when you are with somebody in real time.
Yes.
And you can't turn your camera off when you're in the room. You can't mute. You just got to walk out of the room, and then you're showing what turning your camera is off like. But anyway, my time box.
This was a profound enough conversation. We don't want to exaggerate even more, right? We deviated, as is due, into the realm of music and culture a little bit. Yes. So yes, we should end.
What do we want? Yeah, well, it's as Gödel would say, it is not complete. It's incomplete. Thank you, Gödel. But any last words that you would want to say about beta in software and IT services?
Yes, I hope everybody who attended this, watched this, listened to this, got something out of it. I hope I made my message clear, and I will repeat it here. software companies, IT service firms are ripe for actual transformation that deserves the name, beyond mere agile tooling. We talked about some of the approaches, some of the challenges, also in all kinds of dimensions. Of course, we didn't cover everything today, but the time is here, and I hope it came. We made it clear that this goes for software companies or IT companies, large and small. From 20 people to 20,000 or 200,000. And that this kind of transformation we describe, because of its architecture, its methodology, its principles, will only take just a couple of months. Instead of dragging on with OKRs and other stupid tools, why not transform the organization within just 90 days?
Yeah.
That
well,
it's wanted to make today. Thank you for listening. Ryan, your final words?
My final words is that it's not as hard as you think, and it is important to you got to believe in love after love, right, Cher?
Oh my God, great.
No, so yeah, in it's conceptual. It can be easier in this way because it's easier and harder. I think that maybe that's the lesson. It's easier and harder because all of the challenge is really up here, as opposed to we've got it in our hands. So cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention, Neil, and thank all of those of you out there in the digital bits and bytes and network of the world. So we'll see you next time on BetaCodex Live.